Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from the World Senior Team Chess Championship. As you guys may or may not already know, during this period between February 17th and 26th, the World Senior Team Championship of two separate categories, plus 50 and plus 65 years of age, are taking place in Prague, Czech Republic. This tournament brought over 54 teams from different places around the world. US team has sent two official teams, one men's team and one women's team. They are competing in the same tournament. The prizes will be given separately, so you can root for your favorites, hopefully women and men's team. So far, I've shown you one beautiful game that happened in round one. In round two, US team, the men's team has gotten an equal match. This seems to be a small setback, but I hope it's just going to be a small setback and we'll continue seeing them succeed. I decided to choose a position from board 4. So this position happened in the game between Piotr Skacelik and International Master Steward Rachels. So US team drew this team from the Czech Republic, and it was International Master Steward Rachels that was able to outplay his opponent and bring home a win, which equalized the match. And of course, you know, it is very important for me to note, of course, chess is more of an individual game and we're focusing a lot on ourselves, but when you play for the team, every draw is very important. You have to try your best to, you know, not lose matches, especially in tournaments like these, because losses can, you know, set you back quite a bit. Draws can always come back from, of course, losses too, but, you know, you want to try to show the team spirit and fight even in positions that are more equal and doesn't seem like you can do much. And this is like one of those positions where there's just a little bit of something that Black can try to improve here, but it's not really that much. And why do I say that? Well, you know, I mean, the material is equal and we got a knight versus a bishop, but we have something very tiny, and that is a much better placed king, right? Black's king is definitely much better placed, more active than White's king. We have a knight versus a bishop, and this is nice because pawns are kind of, you know, mostly on the same side of the board. I know this is a passed pawn, it's on the other side, but it is blockaded right now, and certainly, you know, it can look like they're all kind of on the same side of the board. Black's rook is a bit more, you know, seems more active than White's, which kind of has to stay on the third rank to stop Black from giving this rook g3 check, pushing White's king back and advancing further with their own king. So White is more on the defensive side, and that's why it seems that they created some kind of fortress and there won't be really any way for Black to improve. But just because it seems equal, it does not mean you have to take the draw. Like I said, it's a team competition. You gotta fight till the end, especially if you're being, you know, the other team is leading yours. So what can we do with Black in order to improve? Well, we need to find some ways to make some moves that will restrict the opponent, improve a little bit our pieces, and get them to situations where they only have one move that is good enough to maintain the position, because it's very hard, especially getting lower on time and everything, to really find those only moves. So what Black did in this position was the move knight to f4. With this move, of course, he's attacking the rook, he's attacking the bishop, putting pressure, and now you can't just move the rook back. I hope all of you are seeing this. You cannot go back, especially because of this idea. Rook g3, pushing the king back, and you're losing the piece. You're losing the piece with tempo, by the way, of course. So White is forced to play the move rook f3, and suddenly this rook, which was more active, could give lateral checks. Now it's in f3, being restricted. Of course, it attacks the knight, but, you know, it is a bit more passive. Now, the reason for knight f4 was not to capture the bishop, because if you do take the bishop, we're getting into a rook endgame where maybe you can think there are some ideas to improve, but really it's not so clear. For example, if we go rook to g2, white has this check, king d6, and now maybe b3 can be played, maybe king c4 can be played. There will be a bunch of trades, and eventually the game will, you know, peter out to a draw. But we need to try to maintain some kind of, you know, complications. And okay, we cannot really say complications here, I guess, but just keep more pieces on the board to make it difficult for white. So rook g4 was played, protecting the knight. And now asking white a question, what is it that you're going to play next? You cannot move the rook. No, you can't do that, because once again, we got this rook g3 check. And if you think you can come back, think again, because now we've got this little deflection. We take the bishop, we take the pawns, and it will be game over. So white is now put in a situation where they have to choose between either playing b3, which would put another pawn on white square, but this probably you don't really want to do, or move the bishop. Moving the king also does not help. For example, if you go king d2, it allows black to advance, and that's all we were hoping for, finding a way to improve further, pushing you back more. So white decided to play bishop f1. All good so far. And now, small improvement. Here it comes. Rook to h4. The rook gets to be placed on a slightly better file. We know rooks, whenever you're trying to give lateral checks, for example, the rooks have to be the furthest away. Here we got the rook the furthest away, and we're going to give lateral checks. Much better. Obviously, g2 square was restricted by the bishop, so now, you know, with the rook in h4, we can go to h2, we can go to h1, right? Try to get activated, while in the same time, of course, maintaining our knight protected. And what can white do? Here, I want you guys to see we got a little bit of domination going as well. That's another one of my favorite themes, but, you know, I would, if I were you, I wouldn't count all of Sabina's favorite themes, because those are quite a few. So the knight restricts the bishop. You can't really move it anywhere else. You're definitely going to have to keep it on the diagonal to stop the c4, c3 push. And, well, your bishop cannot really move afar anywhere, so that's why you have to go rook g3. Good. You move the rook away. But here, I loved what black did, and that was the move knight e6 back. You can say, what do you mean, Sabina? How is that an improvement? The knight was in e6 at the start of the position you showed us. Now the knight is back to e6. Where's the improvement? Well, here it comes. Wait for it. Well, first of all, the rook's placement have changed, right? Earlier, it was black's rook that was on the g file, white's rook on the h. Now they switch positions. This rook in g3 cannot give the check anymore. We got a knight restricting that, so that's good. Our rook can, in fact, activate on h2 or h1. And now, with the move knight e6, backwards move, but also putting pressure on the weakness. So with white, you only have two moves, bishop g2 or bishop d3. Those are the natural moves that a human would be thinking about, right? So, after knight e6, bishop g2 was played. Now, the thing is, the cool thing about the position is, if you go back, bishop d3, we got c4, tempo. You gotta move the bishop. If you take, you're gonna lose it. Tricky, knight c5, and we got another deflection. So if you think of maintaining your bishop on the diagonal and you're gonna go, let's say, bishop to b1, what black can do now is maybe rook to h2, and your check has been restricted by the knight, but my pressure in b2 is there, very much present. The pawn is gonna fall, and the bishop in b1 very likely will be lost. So this is the reason why in this position white decided to go for bishop to g2. And now, since the bishop went away from the control of the c4 pawn, we can push c4. And I gotta say, okay, if we have access to an engine, which we don't when we play a game of chess, then of course we're gonna find that the best move for white is not staying passive, but rather just trying to find some activity. Maybe rook g8 with the idea rook a8, trying to give up the b2 pawn. We don't want that. We try to activate the rook, try to push you back a little bit, and find some activity with the a pawn. But this is not necessarily something that comes naturally. At least it did not happen in this game for white. And I'm not sure how easy it is to make that kind of decision, because you feel there's nothing damaging, nothing to be worried about when c4, c3 is played, because white's king is close enough to actually stop the pawn. So you're thinking nothing bad is going to happen. But let's not forget, when c4 is played, we also have this idea with knight c5 putting pressure here and here. So you got to think about what to do next. So bishop f3 was played, which happens to be the mistake that loses the game. Now, rook h2, you're allowing the activity. With that pawn being attacked, bishop e2 was played. The problem is, if you go rook to g2, we simply capture. And after bishop takes, knight c5. As I mentioned earlier, this is a weakness, so we can just go take the pawn. Bishop g2 by itself also is not so great, because now you're bound to keep your bishop protected, and we can just play c3. And for example, if you capture, now there's knight f4 idea. You cannot go king d3, because knight f4 is going to be a check bishop. So white is going to have huge problems stopping that c pawn from advancing. So that's the reason why white played bishop e2, and now c3 anyways, takes, and white probably realized that the bishop in e2 indeed stops the rook from supporting the pawn to c2, but also puts the bishop in a position that now you cannot go on either side with your king, because there's going to be either knight d4 check if you go to f3 and knight f4 check if you go to d3, and you're losing the bishop. So at this moment, white probably thought, okay, I'm just going to go rook g1 and stop the pawn. But after rook h3 check, bishop f3, if you move the king over here, probably we can just continue with c2, followed by rook c3, knight d4, knight b3. Bishop f3 was played, and now you guys can pause the video and try to find the way for black to win. I think it was not too hard at this point, because I already kind of mentioned the idea, but we can just go c2. And if you happen to make this move, rook c1, we can go knight d4. This bishop is not going to survive for too long. If you happen to protect it, we're going to trade everything, and then we will promote, or promote first, either way. So after c2, king f2 was played with the idea of escaping the pin, and the rook should be able to stop that c-pawn. But now the beautiful knight to d4. You saw how that knight went first to f4, came back. d4 is a much nicer square. In this case, it protects the pawn, it helps support it to promote, it attacks the bishop too. And in this position, white resigned. For example, if bishop were to be moved somewhere here, let's say rook c3, threatening promotion, you have to go rook c1, and after knight b3, it is game over. So I certainly hope you guys had something to learn from this. Just even if there wasn't much from the chess point, which I hope it was, but at least you learned that you have to push on in positions that seem somehow equal, but you feel you have some ways to improve. A lot of strong players are doing that, and that's the way that they are able to outplay some of the lower rated ones. You just have to have this drive to try to play for a win for as much as you can. I certainly hope you enjoyed this game. Don't forget to follow the tournament in the, following the links in the description. Let us know if you enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to follow US Chess on the various social media accounts, and definitely here, feel free to subscribe, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.